For those who have seen the presentations before, nothing new in here, right? So this is the budget hearing. That is simply a repeat of previous information from really the night of the budget adoption, essentially. So I'll go through it rather quickly, most likely, but certainly if anyone in the public or from the board has any questions at the end, feel free to ask, or even during, if it makes sense for some clarification, let me know. So we've seen this before, our district goals and our mission statement. We use these to begin all of our budget presentations. Again, we thank the board, excuse me, as always, for their consistency in adopting these goals. 1 and 2 have been the same since I started in year 7. Goal 3 changed fairly recently with digital fluency because we did the data and made that more part of what we are doing and institutionalized. Of course, our mission statement to meet these of a great opportunity to serve every student every day at the bottom. Our guiding principles, again, the first 4 have been the exact same since I started. Budget being our representation of our academic program. We want those 2 things to jive. We want to make sure our goals are driving how we use our, as I always say, not just limited, but now ever increasingly limited financial and human resources. We want to make sure data is guiding our decisions and that we're not doing what feels good, but what our data is telling us. We spend a lot of time and effort to improve our data and our data analysis. Number 4, we've been doing pretty consistently throughout, where possible, reducing through attrition. That has been something we've been looking to do, realizing that we are facing consistent financial constraints as well as decreasing enrollment. And then the last 2 are what we added this year, so I kept them in red and kind of really emphasized maybe the word of the budget cycle, which is reasonable. We actually have to really start focusing on reductions, and we have to use our fund balance and reserves, right? That is, as you now know, inevitable and will be an ever-increasing part of the discussion going forward. So we'll take a look at our expenses. A couple things to point out. We had 2 years of the ending of 2 different sources of federal stimulus money, right? That money is now on its way out and gone. One ended last year, one ends this year. There was various things in the stimulus funds. The 2 major ones are AIS teachers, academic intervention services, largely at the elementary, some at the middle, and the CARES program at Algonquin, which is an after-school extended program that, again, using data we know has had success and has made a difference. It was the rebirth of a program that was an old traditional standby at Algonquin for many, many, many years, went away during the dark days budgetarily, and we brought it back using stimulus funds. We talked extensively about the things that are out of our control, namely our 2 retirement system contributions. We don't control those at all. Those are state systems, the teacher one on top, the employee one on the bottom. You see the increases there in the percentage, and then the actual dollar impact of what those are, using round numbers, about $260,000 in increases that are beyond our control, handed down to us through the contribution rate that we have to pay into. Always a driver for us in terms of the budget, and the second real big driver out of our control is always our insurance. You can see our premium increases there, both with medical and prescription, and the plans that we have. Relatively, dare I say, stable or reasonable increases, as we've come to expect. A lot of talk, I will tell you, among the suburban council superintendents at one of our meetings about those rates, and our lack of ability to really control them, right? It's what we're all facing with health insurance, and we do a lot of work. Carrie does a lot of work through the consortium we're in to mitigate and to try to minimize the impact, but that is something that is, to some extent, or large extent, out of our control. When you take the budgetary impact for that, the 270, with the budgetary impact of the slide previous, you're looking at a good amount of money, right? Over $500,000. That's certainly real money. Won't go through this line by line. You've seen it before. Really, the things that we like to highlight here are the top 2 lines, salary and benefits. If you go to the far top right corner, you'll see about 78% of our budget is tied up in salaries and benefits. That is standard for school districts. Obviously, we are a people business, and the majority of our money is spent on people. So we are right at the industry average, by no means higher or lower necessarily, but just to emphasize that that is such a large portion of what we spend our money on. In terms of the revenue side of things, well, we all know this very well. We had to adopt a budget. Unfortunately, the state's calendar and our calendars don't jive in terms of when we have to adopt our budget and when they have to adopt theirs. So we talked about the 4 different versions we were doing, from the governor's proposal, which brought us in under what we had this year by $159,000, up to the hold harmless or save harmless of 0, up to what we were hoping of 2%, to what we were projecting of 3%. If you go back a year ago when we were reading the tea leaves after the fully funding of foundation aid, and we're certainly led to believe through all of our channels that the state was essentially going to be providing about a 3% increase for everyone. They had level set, they fully funded foundation aid. Hey, no one's going to get a ton of money, but you're going to get something. It's usually 3%. We now know that did not happen, but at the time of the budget adoption, that's where we were. What has happened since the board adopted the budget on the calendar we had to follow? We did not get that 2%. We were put in that save harmless category, and that left us with a 0% increase. And that's a $0 increase. I think probably most importantly for the purposes of this, it left us about $350,000 short of what we projected, right? So we adopted that budget. We knew if we came in at 1% or 0, or even the minus $159,000, that we'd have to use more of our fund balance and reserves. That is what happened, and that was to the tune of about $350,000. In terms of the property tax levy, we are going out this year at the tax cap, 3.98%. It's a revenue increase of about $1.4 million. And again, at the limit, the district maintains its run of consecutive years of going out at or below the tax cap limit. We have never pierced nor tried to pierce the tax cap. We've talked about that. That would require a supermajority and 60% voter approval. I think as we talked about here, pretty clearly from the superintendent and from the district, we were not recommending that, and the board certainly was not asking to, what we feel is pass on the state's lack of funding onto our residential taxpayers. We don't have a commercial base, we have a residential base, and any attempt to go above that would have been passing that buck on literally to our residents. So how did we do a plan? Same things we've used in the past. Looked at reductions and we looked at attrition, and then this year the increased use of fund balance. Increased a keyword because we've always used some fund balance reserves when balancing the budget. Going back to their numbers, we assumed 2% increase in foundation aid. That left us with a deficit of about $1.6 million. Add on what we actually got in foundation aid, which was 0. Add another 350, and you end up with a $2 million deficit. 30,000 foot view. We tried to break this down without going into a budget line by budget line for you. How are we going to take that $2 million? Well, we reduced to the tune of about 291,000. We made cuts of around 579, left us with a deficit of about 1.1. Had to bring in some mandated special education additions, right, to meet the needs of our students. All right, those are IEP driven, those are legal documents, and also, quite honestly, just what's best for kids, right? Just what we're here for. And then we have an addition in athletics, which we talked extensively about. We'll go through here, leading us with a deficit of about $1.2 million. The reductions, again, $291,000. We had a teaching and learning cabinet, which we funded through stimulus money. That was really stipended positions that were kind of our proactive think tank, if you will, that was looking at some of the bigger issues in education and trying to get ahead and problem solve. So much of what we do is reactive. Matt led that initiative. Fortunately, it actually went really well. We're really happy with the work that's been done there, but that became more luxury than we could handle. The START Center, we have 2 partnerships with them. That is out of Troy. It's a group that really specializes in high trauma. We have spent a lot of time trying to increase our partnerships with community organizations, from the mental health clinic at the middle school to our multiple now 2 partnerships with the START Center. When we talked through this, we are going to be eliminating both of them, right? We are very happy that we've been able to add back this family intervention partnership. That's being added back. We're partnering with Brunswick. That'll be part of a Questar COSER, not getting into the weeds, but basically enable us to get aid on it. So we're going to kind of bite the bullet on it this year, knowing that if we were able to continue it, we get that Questar, that BOCES aid in the following years. We really trimmed equipment and supply lines, and then Kerry does a rollover budget, and then you start to get retirements, and there's breakage there. People leave at a higher salary than we bring people in for, so you have savings there we call breakage, and that led to some savings there or in reductions. Our tier 1 cuts, this is where we get into the where reasonable we need to reduce. You look at the 4 elementary, 3 bus driver floaters, a teacher on assignment. That's our data coach. Again, important spot for us. So it was not a large department to begin with, and now it's obviously much smaller with that having that teacher on assignment, and then some aid time and some monitor time. Looking at the elementary cuts and the impact, we looked at these numbers pretty extensively. We actually updated them, talked about them as recently as earlier today, with looking at our projected numbers in kindergarten, which we keep a close tab on. Thanks to the good work of Julie Ernst, our registrar. We think still at these target numbers in terms of additions and subtractions as kids move in and out of district. Fortunately for us, we're not a very transient district, so those numbers stay pretty steady. Those are the class sizes we're looking at. We are stretching the board policy recommendations, right? The thing that we strive for with some of those class sizes, but we feel they're certainly within reason, especially given our budgetary constraints. From a special ed point of view, we're adding about $56,000 in. That is for a communications class and for support staff. The communication class is designed for some students that we have now, as well as an increased number of kids coming in. So that the K1 levels, these students have significant communication needs. So we have to, or we think we should have a program for them that benefits their needs, enables them to be more successful. It's going to cost us an aid. Also going to contract out with a PT, a physical therapist, and bring that in because we are not able right now to meet the needs. Again, IEP driven with the staffing we have. We think we can do 0.5 of the contract. In terms of athletics, we are going to add girls wrestling in. Talked about that being literally the fastest growing sport in the state of New York. We've had girls wrestle before, including this season. Very thankful to our coaches who have welcomed them in and done an amazing job with them. And our girls have been very successful. We know through our survey, again, using data, that we have a decent amount of interest from our female population. Growing sport. Next year, there'll be a state championship. That state championship will be held like the boys at the MVP Arena. It is a large and growing sport, and we felt it was the right thing to do for our students. So we're excited at the prospect of being able to offer girls wrestling next year as a full-time team. This was the other second thing that was new since the budget adoption, I believe. And that was, actually it was before budget adoption, between the budget presentation, the last budget presentation and the adoption. Athletics, through some creativity, actually thanks to Matt looking at that. We have unified sports right now. There's 3 that are offered for our most needy kids, bocce, bowling, and basketball. And we currently offer basketball. We talked about this. We know we have an interest from that group of kids in bowling. In fact, we talked about maybe getting rid of basketball and substituting bowling in if we had to next year. But through some creative use of our Title IV grant funds with no impact to the general fund, we discovered we were able to get that grant funded. So that about $4,000 will come from grant funding with no cost to the district. It'll give our special ed students in that category now 2 opportunities. They can bowl and they can play basketball. Back to the stimulus money, there are 2 major pieces I mentioned earlier that are coming in as we went through and analyzed what was in their stimulus fund that we wanted to bring back in. The CARES program, and you see the cost there, and the AIS teachers. That bottom chart you've seen multiple times over the years with what we had in AIS services since 2020-21, where we were projected. Thanks to the stimulus money, we were able to spend the vast majority of that money on AIS teachers. We thought that's where the money needed to go. That's where we spent it. And we were able to keep that from going too far down. Currently in this year, as you can see, in 23-24, we have 6 at the elementary, 1 at the middle school. The projection was to move that down to 3, right? That's what we had talked about a year ago as we were going to phase this down. Again, using data, we know that our AIS teachers are doing a great job. We know it's moving the needle on students. We know it's improving the achievement level of our kids who are on that cusp and are our most struggling learners who are not classified. And we felt like it was important to invest money into there. And that's where we get into really the heart of where reasonable using our fund balance and reserves. It's really this slide right here, right? We could have used less fund balance and reserves, certainly, and reduced our AIS teachers. But we felt like that was being overly prudent and doing a disservice to our kids. So,
And AIS stands for?
Academic Intervention Services. All right, so back to the plan and summary, looking at our fund balance and reserves. We talked to the board about deficit budgeting, right? It's a common practice. Ideally, you're replenishing your fund balance where you don't spend your reserves. We talked about how we have fund balance that we put in and we use that to kind of balance the budget. That's there at the beginning of the year, and ideally it's there at the end, and then Carrie moves that money back into that. So while you're using fund balance, you're not using it up. You're using it to just balance. Again, we can't budget to 100%, right? That would be irresponsible. So you need to have a little bit in there. We've gone through our comptroller audits, and we are where we should be. In fact, we are on the close to the edge line for that as it is. And then there's reserves that we use to balance, and then you hope that you don't use those reserves. It's sustainable. Essentially, every school district in the state does that, right? It's a common practice. We are moving, as we talked about, to really what is unsustainable deficit budgeting as we increase them. We believe, again, it's reasonable, but it's not something we continue. That was just a graphic we used to kind of show this year, and we have some numbers for you now at the end of this presentation. If you look at this year, that little green spot above revenue, that would be your gap, for example, of how you're using your fund balance reserves to balance your budget. When you start next year, you start with that gap, right? So we're starting in the hole next year, which is why it's obviously not an ideal practice. Putting that into some number terms, we looked at our increased use of fund balance and operating reserves. If you look down the 23-24 column, you can see what reserve money we used, what fund balance we used, about $1.38 million in reserve. You see in 24-25 we're budgeting. If you go across, you see the difference. So our workers' comp is going to be about $25,000 higher, ERS $200,000, TRS $150,000. What does that mean? Well, if you look at those bottom lines, whereas we're currently using $1.38 million in reserves, we're going to jump that up next year to $2.2 million in reserves. There's that difference. So when we say we're using an increase of $1.2 million, that's what that means. We already are using fund balance and reserves. We're using more than that to the tune of $1.2 million. When we looked at this, when we highlighted here to kind of keep the focal point, again, you can look at our revenue. Property taxes make up 54%. The state provides 38%. We have graphs to show how that used to look very different, right? It used to be most of our funding came from the state and less of our money came from our taxpayer. And we have that graph to show that over time it goes like that. It now goes like this. So right now, the majority of our budget in terms of revenue is coming from our taxpayer, our local resident, who is, again, in our case, mostly residential. We don't have the commercial tax base like many of our suburban council counterparts to help offset that burden. The state is funding less and less of the percentage of our revenue. That doesn't look like it's going to get any better, all right? When you go down to the bottom, the shaded area, we're looking at about, call it 4%, 3.9 of our budget in fund balance and reserves. We thought when we looked at our numbers and what we could sustain and what was reasonable and what was doable, we felt like that was probably the edge of where we wanted to be, right? We don't want to use more than that. We also felt it was not so good to use less because that would have been more cuts, again, going back to stuff like the AIS teachers. In the end, here's our budget summary. You see our expenditures for 24-25 in the middle, top row, 66.6 million. Revenue projection of about 64, leaving that difference. The change is the bottom or the right column, 1.2. And then we use the assigned fund balance and some use of reserves. Again, just breaking down where that's coming from. Really just the same numbers broken down for you in a different manner. Budget to budget, our increase is $1.69 million. It's 2.61. If you go back to last year, that budget to budget increase was about a full point less. It was 1.63. So we know that that is higher. Keep in mind that the majority of that is because the ending of that stimulus fund. We had general fund, we had stimulus fund. We made the decision to bring a program that was in stimulus into the general fund. If you do that, there's going to be an increase to your year-to-year budget. And that's what happened there. I will tell you, we have seen multiple charts. I've seen one for the Suburban Council, and I've seen one for our Questar BOCES. Our budget-to-budget increase is certainly at the lower end by far in some cases, right? We have, again, given all those costs, when you look at TRS and ERS and health insurance, we are, we think, trying to be pretty prudent in how we're spending our dollars. This is the scary slide. If the other ones weren't scary enough. I took this from last year. I had a slide called Beyond 23-24, and it talked about the end of stimulus funds, and it talked about funding. I can't remember exactly what's on it now. And I thought, well, what would this slide look at? And it's not good, right? If you go back to 23-24, we cut 1.3 million. If you're looking at this year, we're cutting 2 million. So we're over $3 million, 3.3 in cuts over 2 years. We asked Carrie to do a very, very, very early projected rollover budget for next year, right? Take this year's program, roll it over, no changes. What does that look like, right? Knowing that we had, going back to that graph, that little spot of increased revenue. Well, we're going to start next year approximately 1.5 million in the hole, right? That's before you factor in. Now, there's some good things, right? If people retire, there's breakage. If we make reductions, that helps. But that's factoring in increases in health insurance and other things that we don't know, right? So it's really taking the program over and really taking contractual raises, adding that to the budget and starting from there, essentially. But you can see the picture that's being painted, right? It doesn't look any better. And if that doesn't leave you feeling good, it's the third bullet that's probably the most concerning, right? There is no, I struggled with what word to use there, and I looked and I was going to put quotes, and in the end, I just went with the signaling from the governor. It is very clear that for whatever reason, school funding is in her crosshairs, right? I'm not going to pay for empty seats. Districts have to use their fund balance and reserves. There's clear messages. I think her words at one point were the status quo is not going to be maintained, I think was the term she used. I'm taking on the status quo, something like that. It is clear that this year was the beginning. It's our understanding the legislature, both sides, it was bipartisan, Democratic and Republican, Assembly and Senate, pushed back and got some of that restored, essentially to save harmless. For us, $159,000, which I suppose we should be grateful for. But the signaling is this was the first shot across the bow of the governor, and by no means the last shot. That this is going to be a priority or a focus of hers as we go forward. It doesn't bode well for us or the hundreds of districts who are in situations of being safe harmless. We went through it. She changed the inflation factor. There was a lot of things done there. Looking at the vehicle replacement, this is new information. So we always have a bus proposition on. Many years ago, the district was not doing those through those dark days. Through Michael's work, Carrie's predecessor, we got ourselves on a very solid bus replacement plan, right? Just like anything else, you want to phase off, phase on, phase off, phase on in a sustainable, logical way, and not go a year or two without doing this, and then you find yourself needing more buses than you can afford. This is what we're proposing this year. 3 21 passenger buses, 6 30 passenger buses. We need 1 O&M truck. Noting that we get about 71% state aid on our bus purchases, and that we've decided to hold off on doing any electrification of our fleet. Decided to continue to study that, but not actually dip our toe in the water. But if you're looking for more costly news, that is on the horizon too, and none of that was changed in this year's budget proposal. So eventually, we're going to have to not just pay for electric vehicles, which we know are more expensive, but also the infrastructure that comes with that. Total principal $986, some financing brings you to about $1.1 million. Take out the state aid, $375,000 passed on to the taxpayer over 5 years, about $75,000. So we wanted to show what that impact is as we try to be transparent as possible. So that is your vehicle replacement proposition. Moments from now, we'll have our Meet the Candidate tonight. We have 2 open seats. They are 3-year terms. Candidates as they appear on the ballot: Thomas Cooley, Jessica Zweig, and Lauren Jacobs. That is coming moments from now. And then finally, just a reminder for people to vote. Budget is May 21st, a couple weeks away, 7 to 9 p.m. right here in the high school in the auxiliary gym, same location as always. There you go. Any questions? Michelle.
Can we get those graphs that you're talking about showing the historic data?
The one with the state aid and how the state,
Like, I mean, no rush,
Yeah.
obviously, like she's already implemented it, but.
yeah, it's not, I will tell you, it's not completely updated. I did them as part of my, what's it called? When I first got here, transition plan? So I did it then, I did a listening and learning tour, and then did a year of analyzing different areas of the district. And one of them was the finances, so that's when we really did that, so it's about 7 years old, but you'll see the pattern very clearly.
That's
So,
what I'm more curious to have in my hands.
yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll have Carrie up there. I did the first version, maybe she can kind of do an updated one. Any other questions? All right, well, we will close the hearing with 3 minutes to spare, which is perfect. It gives Linda time to set up. If the board would take seats in the audience, and then our 3 candidates, we're going to get you nameplates up there. You're going to be where Matt is, where my seat is, and where Sam's seat is.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I just want
Hey, Matt. What's happening? Instead of what I do.
well, you can probably just take that ahead.
Oh.
You still don't want to
Oh, did you? Yeah, I think I was like, but yeah.
No, no. This is a really cool, horrible way of doing it.
This is
Microsoft
Outlook 30 years ago.
So this is June. I use it down on it. If you can just do.
And not.
I'm hoping. Well, we're gonna try and we're trying to do one, we're gonna hopefully board meeting at 10. So maybe the 11th. We, and then also the budget, our board workshop. I don't know, like, trying to find the date that works.
Splitting up the.
2 events, one is capital market workshop, because we're gonna need a lot of time. So.
So you just did it for.
Yeah, and I crossed off, like, we're not gonna do it before the budget vote. So that's. Last week of May, the first week of June, or like anything. I think what's closer, time, like, what's the time?
Somebody moderating? Back there?
What's that?
You can do from back.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna have the Alta screen. He's gonna moderate from there, and then we have the 3 candidates here. Okay, does that work?
Your show.
Ready? All right, well, thank you for coming to tonight to meet the candidates tonight. We tried a little bit of a different format this time, pushed back the time, tried to do 3 things on one night. First of all, thank you to our candidates for A, being willing to run for the Board of Education, something that we are certainly in need of, and B, for coming here tonight and taking some time out of your schedules to meet with our folks both here. The event is being live streamed as well, and we'll have this up on our website so people can access this in preparation for the vote. We're excited to do this. We think we have a format that's been working well, and with that, I will turn it over to our new communication specialist who's going to moderate his first ever Meet the Candidates night. So, Avi, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome to the district's Meet the Candidates night. The candidates running for the Board of Education are Thomas Cooley, Jessica Zweig, and Lauren Jacobs. For tonight's format, we'll start with a 2-minute introduction for each candidate. Then we'll start with 5 questions, each candidate getting 2. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say, we're also doing a 2-minute introduction for each candidate. And then 5 questions, 2 minutes per question. And at the end of the night, each candidate will get 1 minute to wrap it up. We will also rotate the order of who responds each time. So let's start with our 2-minute introductions. Thomas, would you like to start?
Okay, very good. Ready, set, go?
Yep.
Can you just flip the switch on your microphone?
There you go. There we go. Okay, well, first of all, thanks for affording me the opportunity to speak here tonight. Thanks for the uplifting prelude on the budget. I guess that kind of sets the stage. I got 2 minutes. I have 30 minutes worth of material. I got to consolidate 60 years of my experiences here, but let's go. So, first of all, I'm Thomas Cooley. Live on Whale Wax Road with my wife Christine. We raised 3 kids entirely through the Averill Park School District. We're incredibly proud of them. And we're incredibly proud of the education that they got going through the Averill Park school system, from post-and-kill school all the way up through the high school. They've been very well prepared, both by the school district and, I got to say, also from our family support. They've gone on to, I have 7 grandchildren now, the oldest of which is 6. So they're just starting to enter the Averill Park School District arena. They don't all live in the school district, but 3 of them do. So professionally, I'm an industrial engineer. I spent the last 20 years in engineering management, largely focused around cost conservation on ASQ, Six Sigma Black Belt, and Lean Certified Master from Phillips Medical Systems. Six Sigma is about variation reduction. Lean is all about waste elimination, which is a pretty solid theme based on what we just heard from Dr. Franchini. So I also do large capital projects. I've been involved in leading a number of $30 million plus large capital projects. Along the way with that comes business case approvals. There's always a common theme of cost conservation, which requires cost benefit analysis, return on investment, value add content, and then ultimately hard decisions and contract negotiations. The issues that were raised here with the school board aren't unique to the school district. Private industry as well faces those very same challenges.
All right, 2 minutes.
I'm up?
Yep.
All right, well, get the rest of the questions.
And Jessica, you're next.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure to have been a board member for the past 15 years, serving several years as both the vice president and the president of the board. The year that I started my time on the board happened to be the year of the one-time gap elimination adjustment. That gap adjustment meant a greater than $2.5 million loss of state aid that first year I was on the board. It also turned out to be several years of the gap adjustment. So that significant revenue loss forced many, many difficult decisions. Needless to say, I learned a lot that year. I learned how to prioritize our students, how to use information and data, how to find out more, how to speak with our legislators and advocate for our district, as well as how to navigate disruptive board members, public pressure and bullying, and the emotion of it all. Many of the lessons I learned that first year have guided me, so I am able to make decisions based on data, information, facts, and priorities, and to be a constructive member of this Board of Education. I am a lifelong community member and graduate of Averill Park, as are my 2 young adult children. I am a senior project manager at NYSERDA, working with the agriculture sector. I have served the community in many capacities, including as a classroom volunteer, a 4-H leader, a lector and Eucharistic minister at St. Henry's Church, and a puppy raiser for Guiding Eyes for the Blind. I would look forward to extending my role as a member of this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren, would you like to go next?
I think I'm the last one left, so I don't really have a choice. So hello, my name is Lauren Jacobs, and I've lived in this little district for approximately 20 years and have lived in the Averill Park School District for 10 of those years. So my first encounters with the Averill Park School District was when I worked for Rensselaer County Mental Health, and at the time, both my husband and I worked for the county and thus were required to reside in the county. And when we were deciding where to purchase our home, we chose Averill Park specifically because as social workers, both of us, we both had strong collaborations with staff here to support high needs families and students. I personally had always been consistently impressed by that. And even though our children were quite young and we didn't know what their needs would be yet, it was important to me to live in a district that supported the needs of students. So I have had continued collaborations with the district. When I was still at Rensselaer County Mental Health, I worked for that department for 10 years and got to be part of the satellite clinic at the Algonquin Middle School during that time. During my time as a social worker, I have worked with very small children. I continue to collaborate with the New York State Association of Infant Mental Health to up until seniors. I no longer work for the county, but I have a private practice. So just continue to collaborate with students and families and feel like my work as a social worker makes me hopefully an asset to the board because of I'm no stranger to handling conflict and I have had boots on the ground experience navigating systems and education needs for children and families at all levels. And I feel strongly about social workers need to be in the rooms where those conversations are happening and we're talking about program impacts.
That was 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, so on to our questions. The district did not receive an increase in foundation aid from New York State for the next school year. So what is the state's role and responsibility in financing the cost of education? And we'll start with Jessica in 2 minutes.
Well, I think the state absolutely has a role and responsibility for financing the cost of education because our students are the state's greatest resource. As we know, the foundation aid formula has been broken for a number of years. And I'm glad to see that it is in this year's state budget to work on updating that. And I also, it's important for a number of reasons. You know, we have been dinged for declining enrollment. Most of the state has declining enrollment. But what I feel like they don't take into account in the state aid formula is the baseline costs that every district has for having buildings and transporting their students. Regardless the number of students, those are certainly baseline costs, so you can't just pay for less seats because there are costs that are associated with just being an operating school. I also think there's a need for mandate relief, but the state needs, personally, I think the whole way education is funded in New York State needs to be revamped, because I think the state should take on more responsibility and take it less off of the property owners in each individual district, because public education should be the great equalizer. And I think that would be a better way to do it, so that high needs districts have that equalization coming through than very affluent areas. So that's my answer.
That was exactly 2 minutes. Thank you. And Thomas?
Okay. There we go. Okay, so what's the state's role and responsibility for financing the cost of education? First off, I would say that the role and the responsibilities should match. If they're going to bestow upon us a lot of mandates, I think they should also have the responsibility for funding those. But along those lines, I don't think the state gives us any money that they haven't already taken from us. Where does the state get their money from? Taxpayers, whether it's local school taxes or state income and property taxes. It's still our money. So the state certainly has a role, but I think us as customers of that process and also interested stakeholders, we have a responsibility also to make sure that we spend those precious funds where it adds value. We don't waste any. We're, again, perpetually looking to make sure that we get the best return on an investment. We don't want to be slighting the things that we owe our children. We want to be able to do things like attract and retain the best resources, teachers, custodians, administrators, all that good stuff. Sports, hugely important. We just need to make sure we don't waste money along the way. And a lot of times that means we have to push back on difficult things. We have to renegotiate. We can't accept, well, that's just the way it is, or that's what it's going to cost. There's almost always room for some negotiation.
Thank you. And Lauren?
I think the state has a higher role and responsibility in financing education. I'm not sure why I would live in a state that has such a high tax rate if it wasn't going to meet the base needs of my children, who are, theoretically the future citizens of New York State. I think in all policies, what data shows is that wherever we can put money up front in prevention, even if you're just moving from a dollar and cents standpoint, it helps us as a society, and aside from the very human cost, the financial cost. So where we invest in education and prevention programs, we reduce substance abuse and incarceration. So if we're not frontlining investment in children's education, we're going to spend that somewhere else, but it's going to be in uglier places and it's going to be down the line. So.
Thank you. And on to our next question. The district has been forced to reduce staff when possible and reasonable due to financial constraints. Given the district's financial situation, how do you prioritize pragmatic opportunities and interest for students, such as academics, performing arts, athletics, career and technical education, etc.? We'll start with you, Lauren, again.
Yeah, my hope would be that would be through getting a lot of feedback and data about what resources our students are utilizing and want and need. I love the idea of just giving a variety of opportunities for that, but when we have to make tough decisions, I think we have to be strategic about looking at where are the students actually going, and are we funding that appropriately? And the places where we cannot, do we have a commitment to support our community in figuring out other ways to give our students those options community-wide and through other means?
Thank you. And Thomas, would you like to go next?
Sure. Okay, so, well, I'm an engineering manager, and I also grew up playing sports all through grade school, high school, and college. And as a hiring manager, I see at the tail end of it, how valuable team collaboration and ability is as we get into the, I don't know how I put it, but the productive years of people's careers. For instance, almost everything out there operates in a team environment. So people have to be able to perform in team environments, and certainly you have the academic interest of STEM activities, but the arts and extracurricular activity are extremely important to rounding out the full educational experience. Without that, I don't think the job gets done. So.
Thank you. And Jessica, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Our motto is every student, every day, and so prioritizing, obviously, it's all important, and you really have to take a hard look. This is where you have to take a hard look at, well, first of all, what's mandated, because we have quite the laundry list of what's mandated, and hopefully we'll get some relief on that, but I'm not counting on that because we haven't seen that in my tenure. So this is when you really take a hard look at the data. You take a hard look at the number of students that are being affected by any particular program area. I will say making cuts is awful. We've had to do it many years, and but how do you minimize the impact to the students? And I will say our administration and our teachers and our staff here are extremely creative in finding ways to make it all work and make it all happen. And we need to trust those professionals to give us really good recommendations that are based on the data that we have, like I said, in terms of what types of changes impact the students the least, as well as the least number of students if we actually have to make significant cuts into programming. So it's definitely a time when you really sit down and look at the data and you look at the research that's been going on and out there and trying to make those best decisions that we can. But again, like I said, I would trust the professionals who are really creative, and our district has really great staff that is, from what I've seen thus far, has been able to be successful at that year after year.
Thank you. So what unique qualifications and experiences would you bring to the Board of Education? We'll start with you, Thomas.
Okay, well, I think what I bring to the board needs would be my business experience, my large capital project experiences, my waste eliminations, basically the same issues that we face here at the school district level, we also face in private industry. The difference being in private industry, if you're not doing it successfully, you go out of business and that pipeline gets cut off. Deficit spending doesn't go over so well in private industry, so you're forced to find creative ways of choosing which makes it and which doesn't. And I think everybody here is interested in making sure that we don't slight anything that we give the kids. So we just have to find creative ways of pushing back where we can push back on things that don't necessarily add as much value as the cost would warrant. I've been doing it for way too many years, well over 20, reasonably successful, always in profitable businesses. So I'd just like to be able to share that to augment the resources that we have on the board.
Thank you. Jessica?
So I do have 15 years of experience on the board. So that I think is unique in terms of this panel. But in terms of bringing different experiences from outside my board experience, in my job, I work for NYSERDA. I do a lot of energy efficiency work. And with that, the district has embarked in a lot of energy efficiency work. We have our energy efficiency, I forget his exact title, but I know he's called Captain Kilowatt here, that actually does a fantastic job on reducing the electrical energy use in our buildings. And we've, over numbers of years, so our baseline is pretty well controlled from that capacity. But I also like to keep an eye, because in my general work, beyond energy efficiency, I do manage contracts and contractors. So I know when it's important to have somebody managing a certain task or different things that go on in each of the buildings, whether it be academically or with other student resources that are needed. And so it's good to make sure that those needs, auxiliary needs, are met too, so it provides the best learning environment for the students. So just, from managing contracts and looking at different things, the other skill that I think I bring, I'm currently on our policy committee, and after being on the board for this time, it's important to make sure we have good and tight policies that allow the district to have a clear path in what the board and the community via the board is interested in. So I guess that would be some of my experiences.
Thank you, Jessica. And Lauren, you're next.
Well, I've already said that I'm a social worker and spoken about my mental health experience, but for those who don't know about the field of social work or social welfare, it's very rooted in looking at both quantitative and qualitative data to inform decisions, so not just numbers, but also people and their experiences. And I think that's really important when we're talking about the lives of our kids. And the community that educates them. And it's also a field that works closely with a lot of multidisciplinary fields to inform social welfare. So sociology, economics, various disciplines, and I think that collaboration from the root means it's in everything that I do. I, have deep empathy and ongoing education and awareness about that. And while that might seem like a strange strength or qualification to bring up, I think when we're talking about looking at community members who are coming from different positions or are going to be impacted by changes and have been impacted by a lot of the changes in the past few years, having the ability to access that deep empathy brings stronger collaboration. Most recently, I was I'm still finishing up my semester as an adjunct professor at University of Albany in the social welfare department. So while I've always had great respect for educators, I've also been sufficiently humbled in the past semester of just everything I assumed to be difficult about being an educator in those formats, but it's also given me another vantage point of just the depth of what students who were impacted in some of their formative years of COVID and all the challenges it brought, how that is impacting their moving into adulthood. And I think that is really important.
2 minutes, thank you.
Thanks.
Our next question. The district is proposing another capital project this fall. What are your thoughts regarding the importance of maintaining the district's facilities and the cost that comes with that maintenance? We'll start with Jessica.
Thank you. I believe, and I think there's that data that shows that students thrive in well-maintained and clean buildings. And we here at Averill Park do a really good job with that. It absolutely comes with a cost. We have benefited over the years from state aid when we had our merger back in the late 1990s. And we understand that there's a little, the state aid we receive on our building program, our building projects is less now than it has been in the past. But I think maintaining the buildings and having a nice environment that's student-centric, having an environment where students feel comfortable and they want to come to is just key to being able for them to have their learning that they need.
Thank you. Lauren?
I would echo Jessica's thoughts on that. I don't know how we properly educate students without giving them a safe, clean environment that we show that we have respect and care for. Why would we expect them to do the same? I'm not sure how we educate students without, the community and environment to maintain that. And I don't know of any data that says otherwise, that kids can learn well in facilities or environments that are not maintained and that are not monitored for health, if they just go hand in hand.
Thank you. And Thomas?
Okay, well, I think we all concur that we certainly want and owe it to our students to have facilities that are conducive to a learning environment. I'm not privy to exactly what that capital project is, but with regards to any large capital project, there's cost and there's price. We can't get caught up in what the initial price is. We need to look at the total cost of ownership. Sometimes it might be beneficial long-term to spend a little bit more upfront, make sure we get something that's solid and robust if the long-term costs warrant it. But certainly we need to make sure that we give the students what we owe them in safe facilities that are conducive to a learning environment, something we can be proud of.
Thank you. So then our last question is the district's mission is to meet the needs of and create opportunities for every student every day. What does that mean to you as a potential member of the Board of Education? And we'll start with Lauren.
I think that just requires a tremendous amount of communication and feedback, both to express what we're doing, what the intent is behind what we're doing as a district, and to hear the feedback from students about are we hitting the mark? Are we really meeting their needs? And I think in order that is an ambitious and worthy goal to have, to meet the needs and create opportunities for every student every day, but it requires a tremendous amount of safety in students being able to share with us what we're missing and to be able to reach out and elevate voices that aren't usually heard to make sure that we're doing that. I think that's the crux of it, that it requires a lot of communication, collaboration, and you have to have a lot of safety in order to ensure that can happen and that we get real feedback about how we're doing with that.
Thank you. Thomas, you're next.
Okay. Well, I think it's a pretty solid mission statement. That's certainly what we're here for. That being said, every student is an individual. Not every student wants to be a doctor. They all have their unique capabilities, interests, and we need to provide for them an education that allows them to make choices. They might not know what they want to do when they're in 8th grade. They might not know what they want to do in 12th grade. We need to prepare them for letting them navigate and learn their way through as they go. So as a board member, we need to make sure that we, above all, we provide that foundation for them. And we also need to make sure that we check progress along the way. We don't want to wait until they're graduating high school to find out that we missed the mark. Not everybody is geared to be a STEM student. There's a lot of other very important, very meaningful careers that we need to prepare them for. Let them make their choices. Just give them the foundation on which they can make sound choices.
Thank you. And Jessica?
So it means to me that we have to look at the whole student, not just the educational piece, to make sure that they are comfortable in their environment, they are fed. We have a great program that we work with community members on called the Backpack Program that helps kids that are food insecure. So I think it means to continue programs like that because there are many facets to our students and we want them to grow and learn to the best of their ability, and we want them to be productive citizens of our community when they leave here, and we want them to be prepared for what's next, and that's to be college or career ready. And so to meet those needs, we need to continually assess what those needs are and then use our creative thinking to be able to make sure those needs are met.
Thank you. So now you'll each get 1 minute to wrap up everything we talked about tonight and your own platform. So we'll start with you, Thomas.
Okay. Well, again, thanks to everybody for hearing us out. I think we all agree that we're here to provide for our students. We each bring something different to the table. Any way you slice it, I think the mission statement stands on its own. We need to provide for them, but we also have to realize that, from their budget presentation, there's going to be some challenging times ahead for us. So we have to be very sharp on where we spend our money. We have to be very responsible in choosing what we support, what we have to let slip by the wayside. And then the only other thing that we didn't really get into too much is I think there are roles and responsibilities, some that are very much responsible for the education system. There's also family values that have to be protected. And we just need to make sure that we keep the two of them in the right place. Sometimes it's a fuzzy line, but there is a line there somewhere.
Thank you. Jessica?
I believe a functioning board is one where there's constructive dialogue that allows everyone to express their thoughts and concerns in a respectful manner. This approach leads to better outcomes as many viewpoints are considered, and it also leads to a better work environment for the faculty and staff that's here at the school, and a better community feel for the district in terms of having the school in a community like ours, excuse me, as the center of our community. So I think that's important. I think this current board does a good job of that and is a good example of being a functioning board. I also believe that our administration is second to none. Our teachers are fantastic. Our support staff, our custodial and cafeteria workers, our bus drivers, our mechanics, our groundskeepers, and every employee of this district is a valuable part of what makes Averill Park a world-class school. So I would welcome the opportunity to serve at the Averill Park community for 3 more years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jessica?
Lauren.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You're so close. So I think something Jessica said really resonated, the idea of education as being the responsibility for making our students college and career ready. And that resonates with me in particular because I've been doing a lot of thinking about how much what a different academic and economic and environmental world our current students are inheriting, and that is much different than anybody who is sitting in this room today. And so I think in order to meet those challenges, hearing from those students and to engage them on their needs, and also as we're considering that impact on our community members, as I think was discussed in the budget about not wanting to put greater financial burden on our community that is already facing financial strain just from the changes in economic realities, healthcare realities, and that affects our students, our staff, our residents. And so I think part of my grounding in wanting to have to uplift that voice, like in the board, is to make sure that we're hearing from the students who are inheriting that, because we can't prepare them for something they don't know.
Thank you. So thank you all for your great responses. And I just want to give you all a reminder that on Tuesday, May 21st, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the high school auxiliary gym, you can cast your vote. And then next up, we'll have a Board of Education meeting at 7:45 p.m.
That's 7 a.m.
Oh.
7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sorry.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. Thank you.
Kim figured it out, I think, or not Megan, somebody did it.
All right,
But
thank you for,
made it less cold in here.
all right.
Ask me to shower this morning.
All right, now that those other two, nice meetings are over, we shall stand and commence our meeting of Board of Education. Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't say enough, thanks God. So Jim's making his way over for the superintendent's report.
All right, good evening. We have the shortest superintendent's report ever in 7 years. It is one line. We just met and there's not a lot going on. I know we had a busy night. Budget newsletter is complete. It's going to the printer. We're planning on getting it out the end of this week. If you go back to your memory, I wanted to point out again with the meeting on Tuesday this time because we had to be within 7 to 14 days to get it out after approval. So we had the hearing tonight. We were now able to get it out. We thought the 8th might be a little bit early. We're going to wait to the end of the week so people have it hopefully over the weekend, early next week. In the past, we have run into a problem when we've waited too late, that because of some issues at the post office, just with logistics, it's gotten to different areas late. So we wanted to make sure we got it earlier. So thank you for adjusting tonight's meeting from Monday to Tuesday. And that is it. And we have a rather short celebrations of success video too. Thanks to Avi for doing the celebrations of success. The trainers room is kind of, again, we talked a lot about our building and grounds department. That's an area they renovated. It's also being used as our kindness closet. We're making some transitions. So that's an area they have where students are able to kind of pick and use, take clothes for otherwise don't have the ability to maybe get some of the stuff. So it's donated clothes, and we're going to turn that area into kind of half trainers, half kindness closet, as well as a space for officials. So again, a very small space that was not in the best of shape that our people internally were able to turn around and turn it into something that's going to be nice for our students and help meet some of our needs. So that is all of the superintendent's report. Back to you, Samantha.
I just want to say that you said that was going to be short celebrations of success because there's so much going on, but it actually wasn't that short. Like, there was a lot of stuff in there.
And super impactful.
Which, yeah, really impactful stuff that like speaks to all the awesome stuff that we look at. It's our first public comment period for items on the agenda. I have no blue sheets, so we will keep on moving. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the April 23, 2024 meeting. Megan first, Michelle second. Any discussion on April 23? All those in favor of approving those minutes? That is unanimous, Linda. Any motion to pass consent agenda 5, 6, and 7 for business personnel and special education. I need a motion. Megan and Adam. Any discussion on business items, Adam and Jesse?
And a quick question, 5D, we have an agreement with CERN, but I read through it. What exactly do we get for our $7,500?
Good question. Turn it over to teaching and learning, I believe.
So Zern is a supplemental math instructional tool, online tool. So what we get is access for all of our students in the elementary school, K-5, and teachers. Typically, it's used, again, supplementally, so the teachers are able to assign differentiated lessons to the students that actually connect directly with the curriculum that we're doing in the classroom. So we have what's called When I Need Win Time during the day, so students can actually be working on individual skills using a tool like Zern. So Zern kind of gets at the heart of the skill work that our students need. Teachers then get reports back as well as part of our PD service with them.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
Jesse and Jesse. Or okay, Jesse first. You're up, Jesse.
I just had a question on 6G. Are we jumping out of order, Jesse, if I go first? Okay. This is probably our most upsetting and frustrating portion of the night, the abolishment of the 4 full-time employee elementary positions. What I was wondering is, I understand the need to cut the 4 positions, or to cut the people in those positions now, but my concern is, why do we need to cut the positions? Why couldn't we just eliminate the employees and leave them there, so that, for example, if one of the classes that we think is going to be smaller gets to a point where there needs to be 3 classrooms, we can just fill the position at that time?
It's a good question. I usually like to blame Jeff when he's not here, so it's a little bit awkward. But because Jeff told us to. We have to abolish positions as we are reduced from the budget. In the event that we want to bring the positions back, we would just create new positions, which we've done over time. I think probably most recently, I'm thinking admin positions, like the assistant director of SPED, I think went away and came back, or the director of teacher and student supports was a title change. So we have the ability to create or add positions through board action, and when we reduce or get rid of or eliminate positions, we abolish them. Is that the correct answer?
It's 100% correct, thank you. And I would add, under the education law, it's the abolition of the position that triggers the layoff, which triggers the seniority application. So
There's a line there, a flow.
if you need a new one in the future, I hope you do, you just create the position, post and hire. Or recall from the layoff list if you have people on the layoff list.
Answer your question.
So I wanted to thank St. Henry CYO for their increase in the amount of the James McCormick Senior Averill Award. It's appreciated. And I also wanted to take a second to acknowledge the hard work of the Committee on Special Education. Year round, I know they work hard, but especially this time of year, they seem to be incredibly busy with the count of the students they are assisting, bad word, but assisting at this time. I want to say a big congratulations to Josh Gala and Brian Rode, who are both receiving administrative tenure tonight. In both cases, I think it's well-deserved and a fine recognition of their hard work and dedication to the district. But I do want to take a moment to share my personal thoughts about Dr. Brian Rode. My oldest was a first grader when Brian started teaching at Post and Kill. Dan was lucky enough to have him as a teacher that year. And as a classroom volunteer, I was impressed by the way Brian managed his classroom, the students, and the parents. He showed enthusiasm and passion for his work. He was patient and kind, encouraging the students that caught on quickly to do more and perfect their work, while providing the necessary instruction and time to the students that were struggling with the same concept. A balance that is not easy to find and manage. As a school board member, I watched Brian move to an administrative role, at first a multi-hat position that included professional development, among other things, and now as the assistant principal at Algonquin. He took on those challenges with the same enthusiasm and professionalism he had in the classroom. Being passionate, patient, and kind, and providing encouragement and support to the students, parents, and his colleagues has led him to much success. It has been my pleasure to witness Brian's professional growth, and it is my privilege to be able to approve his tenure tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. I was gonna congratulate the two of them, but I don't think I could say anything. What I will say is I do appreciate the process by which these folks, not just Mr. Yella and Dr. Rode, but the tenure process, that when it gets to that point, the work that's been done along the way to, we talk already today, we talked a lot about students getting the support that they need. And so this district giving staff the support they need, as well as have these tenure appointments or tenure votes that we can all feel really solid about. There's no crazy surprises, and everyone's performing at the top of their game. So I personally am really grateful for Mr. Yella's hard work, and maybe he knows all of our little PES kind of kids. So you took the words out of my mouth, and that is totally fine. Any more discussion? All those in favor of passing this consent agenda? Okay, and that's unanimous on that. Thank you. We have our action items. I need a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement by and between the Averill Park Central School District and One Verdict for Technology Consultant Services. Well, that was Jackie and Megan. Discussion. I just want to thank Lynn for all her hard work over the years. She's saved our bacon from the tech side in our household, our very 1987 household, numerous occasions. And I'm appreciative that we can give her what she needs to go and live her life, but stick around for when we really need her. So I just want to say that. Much appreciation for them. Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thanks. I need a motion to approve memorandum of agreement by and between Averill Park Central School District and the Administrative Support Employees Association regarding the appointment of Travis Malone as interim network engineer. Megan and Adam seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Welcome, Travis. I need a motion to approve the employment agreement by and between Averill Park Central School District and Deb Kramer. That's Jesse and Megan, seconds, and discussion.
I just want to say all three of these, this one and the previous two, again, demonstrate the way our administration is creative in terms of solving some problems or challenges, I should say, that we face. So we really appreciate you guys working through this, so thank you.
And I would say in service of our goal, our second, getting our students digitally, I can't even say the word, digitally fluent. We can't do that without any of these folks. And you're making evidence-based and database decision-making doesn't happen without any of these folks. So all those in favor, I'm hearing no more discussion. Sorry guys, if I cut anyone off. All those in favor of approving Doug Kramer in the district, that's unanimous on the things. And then I need a motion to approve the agreement for educational and residential services by and between Averill Park Central School District and the Andrus Children's Center. Megan first, Adam second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? That is unanimous. We have our second reading of policy 6240, investments. And I believe some question on one sentence that Kelly answered, so we can do one.
Yeah, I did confirm this does need to be reviewed annually, so we will make it a point that it will be on the reorg every year for an annual review.
So I make a motion to waive further readings and adopt the policy as written.
Thank you. Megan seconds that motion. Any discussion? Now that it's on the table. All those in favor of adopting policy 6240 as is? That was unanimous. Michelle, sorry, ma'am. You're quick. Okay. I need a motion to approve the resolution with the Quest Archery BOCES for the purpose of entering into a lease agreement for the purpose of financing technology purchase. Motion Megan first. I need a second. Adam. Any discussion? Adam and then Michelle, or Michelle then Adam.
Is that something that we get a reimbursement on, portion of it?
Yeah, we do get OCD back on that.
Okay.
And so just to summarize it, it seems like it's for 638 Chromebooks. We're gonna pay it over 4 years at a cost of about 400 per unit, just doing the math. It's a typical capital lease, right?
Yes, and the advantage of going through BOCES is because of the piece of it.
Oh,
so.
nice, yeah, all right. I love capital leases, by the way. For startup companies, they're a great way to conserve cash, so nice job.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving this resolution? That is unanimous again. Chance. Second public comment period for the evening for items not on the agenda. Still have no blue sheet. So we will head over to board member reports. And Michelle, if you want to start.
I don't have anything to report.
I also don't have anything to report.
Nor do I.
I just wanted to thank all the candidates for being here tonight. I want to encourage everybody to vote for the budget upcoming, and I have nothing else to report.
I want to echo Jackie's sentiment. I want to thank everyone who turned up, and especially the candidates running for the board. It is no small feat or easy job. The compensation is terrible, but it is the type of labor of love for your community, and it is very much appreciated to serve on the board with us. I would like to recognize, only because it was so recent that it didn't make the celebration a success, and it might make it for the next meeting, but I can't help but miss the opportunity to congratulate our wrestlers that competed over the weekend and are on their way to Fargo, North Dakota in July to compete, including one of our Lady Warriors, Mia Banker, who was one of our first lady wrestlers this year and has earned herself a spot going to Fargo. It is no small task, and she's just a shining example of strength and perseverance because she's coming back from a broken collarbone injury that sidelined her. So super proud of all of our athletes. I've said it before, I'll say it again, our students are exceptional. And just very proud of all of them, so.
Definitely. As Jackie said, don't forget, 2 weeks from today in the high school auxiliary gym from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Don't forget to vote. It's important.
For sure. Definitely thanks to the candidates for putting their hats in the collective ring. I look forward to working with any and all. Yeah, I'm gonna say it again, these guys said it, you can't say too much, go vote for the love of, go vote 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. There's lots of resources, to look in your mail, look on the website, there's resources to get informed. I just wanna highlight a couple of, it's not super, well, is it more different? Just some music stuff, you know, there's lots of what's going on all the time. And the music departments, I just want to highlight that for just a second. In the middle school, I know we maybe had a celebration, I can't even tell. They had, the high school had the coffee house, the jazz coffee house. These are things that are kind of above and beyond, they're not kind of regular music class. The middle school has a chamber, a little chamber groups of string instruments, a couple of cellos, a couple of violas and some violins. We played a concert out in the community. And, these kids put themselves out there to, maybe even a less friendly crowd. It's not the school, it's community members out in the world. And they did a fantastic job. And the teachers that sort of take the interests that these students have and find all these ways to do a little bit extra is huge. And those are kind of the formative things of sort of that, go, and then you go on stage in front of a bunch of strangers, which character building, but for real. And so I just want to thank those teachers for going the extra mile to music students. And that's all I got. We adjourn to executive session first and then adjourn to full meetings.
Correct.
So this is the way you're seeing it, so I just need a motion to go into executive session. And then that's, so Jesse and then seconded by Ben. We will not return after that executive session. So for those of you guys who came, thank you. And Coach Nice.
All in favor?
All in favor of adjourning executive session? That's yes. Okay, sorry about that. Let's get that right.
I have mail.
You have mail.
Very safe.
So we gonna go across the hall?
No, we're talking.
Have fun, Barry.
So, no, we have, no, we got much to talk.